Welcome back, dear achievers. Today we are going to look into the poem on Road Not Taken. Let's start. Before we could move into the poem, let us just discuss about some details on the poet Robert Lee Frost. Robert Frost is basically an American poet and a playwright. He was born in the year 1874 and passed away in the year 1963. He has written many famous poems like Stopping the by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Fire and Ice, Mending Wall, Death of the Hired Man, and many more. He is basically a nature based poet as well, and he has written many notable poems which became very famous. And other notable works of his are A Boy's Will, North of Boston. His notable awards, if you could mention, is the Pulitzer Prize Award. This prize award was given to him for Poetry Congressional Gold Medal. So here in this case, if you could see that one of the most prestigious award to any poet in the field of literature is a Pulitzer Prize Award. So he is a very seasoned poet. So let's move into the poem, The Road Not Taken. The poem is all about the concern of decision making. All of us love to decide on our own, and we always mention that we have grown up, so whatever I want I will take my own decisions. That's what the first dialogue that we would put across to our parents, correct? So in today's world everybody wants to take their own decisions, but how to take decisions, and if at all we are taking decision, what could be the repercussion, what could be the aspects that we had to look into, what could be the positive aspects into that particular decision making are all about to be taken into consideration when it comes to a decision making. That is what the poet wants to put it across here. There are two different school of thoughts regarding this poem on Road Not Taken. One school of thought says that Robert Frost is basically a literature-based person. So those days, maybe he had been, had taken this particular concern of the uh, literature section as his profession, when others had taken a normal job because their day-to-day life need to run. Literature-based job, profession or job may not be able to fetch money on a regular basis, so monthly salary or amounts are not possible there. So might be because he had taken the most difficult decisions in his life to stay back in the literature section was to be discussed in this particular poem on Road Not Taken. So this is one school of thought. The other school of thought is the poem has been written by the poet to make fun of his friend Mr. Edward Thomas. Mr. Edward Thomas had a kind of a wavering mind. So every time he makes a decision on one particular thing, he always feels that over a period of time, that decision what he had taken had not actually set in, so he must not have taken that decision. So instead, he must have gone as per the decision of something else or somebody else. So he always had a wavering mind. He never had a very strong leg over the decisions that he had made in his life. So to make fun of his friend's decision making, thought processing, or rather his mentality, Frost had written this particular poem. So that's the second school of thought that we have. Let us move into the poem. So whichever school of thought, the idea behind is decision making. So here in this particular poem, he just takes the concern of life to be the road. Okay, so throughout the poem he says road, road. So everywhere, wherever he mentions the concern of road, it means the life or the decisions that he had taken. Okay, so that's why this particular concern of he is comparing life or decision to that of the road here. So that's why we consider here in this case as a metaphor, correct? So we are comparing, he's comparing two different things but without any concern of as or like added to it. So the whole poem, if you could see, everywhere this particular info on road only has been taken. So the poem is actually called to be a extended metaphor because it's throughout the poem. The comparison is throughout the poem. So that's why it's called as a road not taken, through, which is an extended metaphor. So moving on to the poem, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And being one traveller, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So the first stanza, if you could look into this whole poem, if you could break into stanzas, the first stanza he just points out that he has come to a road, a point onto the road where the road is dividing itself or diverging itself into two different roads. So the first line says, two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Here wood means forest, and the wood seems to be yellowish in color because it is the time of autumn. So since it's the season of autumn, so if you could see the road seems to be diverging into the yellow wood. And sorry I could not travel both. He feels pretty apologetic here, and he says that he couldn't travel both the roads together. So he wants, because he could, being a single traveler, he had to take only one decision on traveling onto only one road, right? So, and being one traveler, long I stood. So being a one single traveler, he just thinks about how to go about, which road to take about, and he's standing there and he's thinking about it long to take a particular decision. And looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So he's just peeping into each and every route, the left one and the right one, both together, and he's just peeping if he could find out where it actually bends into and moves ahead. So undergrowth, it's like how farther it is moving, which route it is taking, and all those details. Then took the other just as well. So then in the second stanza, so first stanza he has taken or understood the two different concepts of roads, and he is just trying to compare which one would be the better choice for him. But on analyzing, he feels that in the second stanza he points out, then took the other as just as fair. So he took both equal, just as fair. So it's a simile that's been used. Both are being equally been taken into consideration. Both are equally good, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted well. So he just points out both are equally good, but both areas seems to be pretty grassy, and there seems to be they wanted to call for the wanting of where. But when compares to when he's just comparing, he just points out that with each and every positive and negative aspects of the two roads. See the way of he's taking decision. Whenever we take a decision, we need to compare the options in hand, find out and analyze the positive and negative aspects of those options, and only then come to a particular conclusion. We cannot be in a haste to take decisions. That is what he points out here. See, grassy and wanted where. Here the wanting where. So the road seems to be wanting where. He just once it points out that he is like, the road calls him for, please come and step on to me. Let me just get worn out. So it's like that. So can a road speak? No. So in this case, it's actually wanted where is a personification. So the wanted where, the road seems to be personified here and has been asking like wanting where. So in the other concern, if you could see this in the another poetic device that's been used in wanted where is the WW, the consonant sounds that are being repeated as a first part of the word. So in this case, it is the alliteration. So those as for the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning, so he just points out, though as for that passing there, so had warned them really about the same. So though people have gone in and come, so had really warned them really about the same. So both seems to be almost equal in the way that has been put across, the way the roots are, the way the things are. But here he points out that one road and the other road have some kind of differences in its life. So that's what he's trying to bring in here as well. So what are the slight differences that he could make a note of? So one is having a little wear and tear, but whereas the other seems to be completely shiny and sheen. So it has not lost its shine. So that's what he points out then. So though as for that passing there had warned them really about the same, but both that morning equally late. So he's just standing there in the morning time, and he finds that both are almost same by all means, and there are pluses in this point and minuses in that point as well. So both are equally about the same. In leaves no step had trodden black. So, but he just points out that in one route there are many people who had gone and come, but in the other route there seems to be leaves without any steps on trodden black. So there wasn't any black marks onto it, shoe marks onto it. So which means people had not chosen that particular path, but rather had chosen the other path only. So he just points out that this would be a better chance, because he wants to be showing his individuality there, his decision making skills. He wants to be more independent. So he wants to take the decision of going ahead with the one which is less traveled by. So I kept the first one for another day. So he just kept the one which has been traveled by others for some other day, or some other experience that he could take in his future. And so he is going for the other one, the second option, where no steps of trodden black had been there. So that is a brand new area, a new opportunity to take, yet knowing how way leads on to way. So he says, of course, whatever the decision that he is making is, one way will lead on to another way. He's like very sure that he is going to take another route and completely be off the track, compare to the connecting to the first route. And he says, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So he says, once if I start on moving on to that particular route, I would definitely be taken for another route. So, and my life will keep moving. And he's like having a doubt, will I ever be able to come back to the first route and take the first experience there? And he very well points out that in the last part of this, the last stanza, the last part of the poem, he just points out that, see the way now he has decided, first point, he is just taking in the first stanza and on a comparison, which would be better, what is exactly there. So he's just thinking, what are the various concerns there, what are the options there available. And once he found out that only two options are there, and these are the things that are moving in, he just really goes into the deeper thought processing of analyzing those two options that he has in hand in the second stanza. The third stanza, he comes to a conclusion. Yes, I am going to take the second route only, which has not been taken by anybody. Now moving on to the last stanza, he says, I shall be telling this with a sigh. So sigh, a deep breath. So somewhere ages and ages hence. So he just points out, I shall be telling this with a deep breath of sigh, might be a sigh of relief or a sigh of sadness. So if at all he is very successful in that particular route of his choice, definitely he'll have a sigh of relief, and he will be feeling very happy that he had taken that, made that particular choice. But when it comes to the other way round, suppose he had been a failure in that particular route, and all would just point out that you could have actually followed the footsteps of others instead of being independent or taking that particular wrong decision. So in that particular point, he would have definitely had a sigh of sadness. So he just points out that I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. So in the future, he says, later, years after year, so in the future, maybe it's like he would be telling people that two roads diverged in a wood, and it was me, I took the one less traveled by. So it was me who had taken that particular decision of moving ahead in the one less traveled route, and that has made all the difference. And that had actually brought in the bigger difference in my life. So whatever the plus or minus of my decision will only be bothering me. So, and definitely I will have to undergo the plus and minuses of my decision making. But whatever the decisions I have taken, he seems to have a very strong point on sticking to the decision. That is more important. That's what he points out. You stick to a decision that you have taken, but before taking the decision, don't be in a haste, but rather analyze the options that you have in hand and then take a decision. So that's what he points out here. So he just points, it's a lifetime lesson that anybody could learn in terms of decision making. Correct. All of us would be in a most difficult scenario of which course to take, which group to opt for. What should I really make myself into in my future? Should I follow the footprints of my father or my mother, or is it like should I take my independent own decisions? So whatsoever, it is all our decision, and we should never regret on making such decisions, because we need to think several times, take a deep call, and only then take a decision. So that's more important in terms of the decision making. And in such cases as well, today's decision making, I wanted to become a doctor, not that everybody can become a doctor whosoever aspires for. It's fine, it's fine. You can go for a second option in life. If that second option is not working out as an engineer, it's fine. Go for another option in life. So let us have several options in life instead of taking a call as this particular idea of mine, or rather my own decision had faltered. So therefore, I will only take a decision of committing suicide, or rather finishing my life. That is not the end at all. That is not the right way of deciding. So that is a wrong decision that everybody knows. So instead, a brilliant decision would be take options in life. Options that will really work out for us. Think, give a deeper thought processing to it. Take options in hand. Which would be the best option for me? That becomes my first one. Which would be the least priority to me? Let that be the last point. So whatsoever it is, I need to live my life with a successful aspect. That's more important to all of us, right? So here let's go on to that particular decision making. That is more important here. Now moving on to the poetic devices used here. So the poetic devices, as we already looked into, it is an extended metaphor. The whole poem is a comparison of road to that of life or the decisions. So thereby it is an extended metaphor. The next one, as we had looked into, is the other concern is nothing but the wanted where. So wanted where, here we understood that wanted where, a road cannot call for wanting of where. So it is a personified version. And moreover, the WWE, the consonant sounds that seems to be repeating in the first part of the word. So thereby it is your alliteration used. So that's two different poetic devices so far we had looked into. The third one we also looked into in the fifth line, as just as fair. So here in the concern of as just as fair. So as just as fair, if you could look into, this particular thing is more of important, where it's like we are comparing with the as or like only. So both roads seems to be equally good. So thereby in this case, if we could go ahead, is simile. So that's the third poetic device that's been used. So as just as fair, that is a simile. Wanting where, here it is the personified version. Then coming on to the alliteration as well, and the yellow wood, or rather the entire poem, that seems to be a metaphor, an elongated metaphor. The yellow wood is also here the yellow color of the wood. So the yellow color, which here it's comparatively it's to the autumn season. So here in this case also it's the metaphor that is being used. So there are several poetic devices that's been used. And more importantly, if you could look into the next poetic device, is nothing but the words on ages and ages. Ages, ages, way, way. So these are words that are getting repeated. So this is a poetic device that's called as repetition. So repetition, which seems to be repetition of words inside the poem. Okay. So that's repetition. Moving on, here if you could see, these words and seems to be repeating, the word on and seems to be repeating thrice, and also the word on the letter I, the word I, that is also seems to be repeating. So these words, when they are repeating, but they repeat as the first word of a line. So in such cases, it's called as a special type of repetition, which is nothing but anaphora. Okay, so this is anaphora. And if you could look into, there are various other poetic devices. Most essentially, if you could look into the whole poem as we are reading, we are able to imagine what is exactly he is trying to tell us through his words. So then that particular specific poetic device is nothing but your imagery. So you have several other poetic devices that are being used here as well. See, you have the metaphor, extended metaphor, the imagery, the simile, the personification, anaphora, and repetition. Here we have the assonance as well. Let us find out where is the assonance concern.